Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bold Women Lawyers Spotlight Interview. I'm Sharon Christie, CEO and founder of Bold Women Lawyers, where I provide business coaching to women lawyers in solo and small law firms. And having spent so many decades myself as a lawyer and 16 in a solo law practice, I learned a lot about how to run the business. And one of the things that I talk about a lot to my clients is make sure that you have a niche and you've niched it down very clearly. We have a wonderful guest with us today, Kristina Feher, and she has probably one of the most interesting crossover niche practices I have heard of. So let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll get into her business and how she ended up doing what she's doing now. So Kristina is the managing member of Feher Law in St. Petersburg, Florida. She practices in the areas of bankruptcy and family law. And this is a fascinating story. You will love to hear how she ended up in this area of practice. She is quite busy. In addition to her law practice, she's president-elect of the St. Petersburg Bar Foundation. She is the executive director-elect for the Kanakaris Family Law Inn of Court. She serves on the board of the Tampa Bay Bankruptcy Bar Association. She serves as a 6th Judicial Circuit representative for the Florida Bar's Voluntary Bar Liaison Committee. And as if she wasn't busy enough, she's an adjunct professor for St. Petersburg College's Paralegal Studies program. So that is a lot of action, Kristina. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Bold Women Lawyers Spotlight Interview.
Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm so happy to be here.
So let's get into this. As you and I have talked about before, I am a huge proponent of find your niche, narrow it down, focus on that. And certainly there are some fairly traditional, I think, crossover niches. Yours is not one of them. So tell us how you, whoops, there goes my chair. Tell us how you ended up in this practice. How did you start out practicing law? What was your area of specialty? And take us through your journey.
Awesome. Yes. Happy to share. Definitely is a unique one. So when I graduated from law school back in the day, the major avenues of where to work and the jobs that were plentiful were really either state attorney's office, public defender's office, or insurance litigation, mostly on the defense side. So I really wasn't focused on the criminal stuff. So I went into insurance defense litigation. And then just not too much around the corner after that, the economic downturn happened and I ended up getting laid off from where I was working at the time. So then the shift moved to the foreclosure firms that were either helping homeowners or doing, defense for the lender side. So I ended up at a firm helping homeowners with foreclosure and foreclosure cases. There was a natural segue from foreclosure into bankruptcy, because bankruptcy was a way to stop foreclosures from happening and then either allow the homeowner time to move on to another property or to help them maybe catch up on their missed payments. So bankruptcy was a really natural transition. Fell in love with federal practice. Way back in the day when I grew up, I was focused and kind of grew up in a dance academy. Very strict, very formal, very regimented. And there were a lot of similarities between that upbringing and federal courts. Very formal, very regimented, very structured. So I liked that about federal court practice. All of my bankruptcy colleagues were wonderful, wonderful people, still are, intelligent. Everybody just was very understanding of how this case was going to come out. But we were all still professional about it. You knew you were going to win. I knew I was going to lose, but we went through the motions and we were professional about it. So that part was easy. And I was still a young attorney at that time. And like many young attorneys, your partner comes to you and says, hey, I've got a friend, I've got a guy, I know someone.
Yes,
And
yes.
so in my role in the foreclosure firm, that friend had a divorce problem and was going through a divorce and needed someone to represent him as a favor. And so that's kind of how I ended up in bankruptcy and helped that friend through the process of going ahead and getting divorced. And that was kind of my first foray into divorce.
Well, what did you
So I
think of it?
ended up there practicing both bankruptcy and family law.
Well, when you had that foray into divorce, compared to your work in federal court, what did you think of it?
It was very different, but still had a lot of good similarities. So very different because bankruptcy was federal court and divorce is state court. And I think kind of tongue in cheek or jokingly, I liken federal court to the ballet academy I grew up in, and state court with the divorces a little more like a circus. You have to spin the plates and keep them going. Something somewhere's on fire, and you have to ride a unicycle to get through it all. So that's a little bit of how I felt. The beauty of the similarities, though, were they were both civil and they were both bench trials. So the judges make the determination. So, in terms of not having to worry about picking juries versus not, bench trials versus jury trials, both of them are bench trials. So, that kind of helped me be able to focus on really understanding what it is judges look for when they make the determination in the cases.
That's a great point. Um, so, so you had the bankruptcy experience, and then you had the divorce experience, but you were working for another law firm at the time, right?
I was, and it just kind of got to a point, I think, where as women lawyers, all my partners were men, and it was just a disagreement on how to handle a case and what the outcome was going to be more holistically for the client. Yes, we could help the short term solution, but we couldn't address what the outcome and the fallout was going to be. And so I was, discussing maybe taking a more holistic approach of how is this going to affect the client down the line versus no, this is what we need to do. And I feel like we just kind of hit our ends, and
Mhm.
it was just a decision that I can do this on my own or I'll figure it out. But it's better than continuing to butt heads with people who maybe at the time I didn't feel were respecting me and my knowledge and my experience, even though I was the younger lawyer.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think you make an interesting point about looking at a holistic approach, which I think is something that is more frequently done by women lawyers. But when you say, I mean, I know what I mean by the holistic approach. Tell me what that means to you.
Sure. So this client was looking to help reorganize business debt. And so a bankruptcy could address the business debt, but in the larger approach, how it affected her personally and her personal assets, and how it would affect business financing down the road, which was also connected to her personal and business finance.
Right.
I think they either didn't want to deal with it or it wasn't going to be their problem because they were only helping with this one thing that they were hired to do, which was to file the bankruptcy to address the business debt.
And that's understandable. I mean, that's what you're hired to do. But I think, like you, my reaction would be, but weren't we also expected to advise on what's the consequences? I can certainly file this for you, but you need to understand, XYZ,
I
right?
100% agree because at the end of the day, we're really counselors at law. And I think that it was difficult then as a young lawyer and as a young woman lawyer to be in a room with men who were saying, this is what this will do. And, not knowing my place maybe, or not knowing what my my comfort level in saying something to say, yes, but, what about this? What about that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you decide to set out on your own,
Yes.
right? Okay. And how long ago was that?
That was in 2010 now. So this
Wow.
year, Feher Law will be celebrating its 13th anniversary on May 1st. So that
Oh,
is really exciting. And the funny story about going out on my own was maybe a week before I had had that final run in, that's it, I'm leaving the firm. My mother had told me about a friend and colleague of mine who had opened her own law firm. And I remember saying to my mother, she's crazy. I would never do that. It's
wow.
bananas. And then a week later, had to have the conversation with my mom and say, you know what? I think I might go out and open my own firm.
What'd your mom say?
She burst into tears. She was so thrilled, more so because I could then choose to do what I want. And one of the things that was very important to her was immigration. Both of my parents are immigrants. And so the
Oh,
thought of me then being able to practice immigration law, if I wanted to, was
yeah.
definitely something she was excited about.
But did you want to?
I did for a little bit. And
Mhm.
I did do some visas. I did do some work with human trafficking victims, which
Oh,
was absolutely wonderful. And then as the time went on, and you have to make those decisions about niches and decisions about what is good for the practice, what is good for you. It's something that eventually did get phased out.
mhm. Okay. So you handle now bankruptcy cases and family law cases. So tell me, is there any crossover between
So
the
much
two?
crossover. I know that you said it's such a unique crossover, but I think of it at the very basics that people who have love troubles often have money troubles, and people who have money troubles often have love troubles. So it really is much more common than we think. But I think because bankruptcy is still a little taboo, we don't hear about it as much.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, people feel there's a moral component to bankruptcy that is no longer attached to divorce. I think at
Right.
one time that moral component was there, and that's long gone. But I think it really is still there for bankruptcy. So tell me
100%.
how this comes up in the family law context, and then we'll look vice versa if somebody comes to you on a bankruptcy matter.
Sure.
And
So, in
yeah,
the family law context, the purpose of a divorce is to put people and to divide their assets, but also their debts equitably. And there are
mm,
some cases where they don't have assets. Maybe they rent their home, they lease their cars. But what they do have and what they've accumulated during the course of their marriage is a lot of debt.
uh,
What a family law court can do is say, okay, you're responsible for these credit cards and you're responsible for those credit cards. But practically speaking, if they don't have money to pay these, what is the court really doing? Almost like assigning blame that
mm,
doesn't help anything, assigning debt to one person or out of two people, neither of whom can pay it, isn't really helpful. And
yeah.
so a lot of times that's where my colleagues will reach out to me and say, we have these clients, they have little to no assets, but they have this debt. What are their options for filing bankruptcy?
Understood. Yeah. Okay. And then how about, you said frequently if you've got love troubles, you've got money troubles.
Yes.
How about the other way around? I mean, do people come to you for bankruptcy and end up saying, and by the way, I need a divorce?
Yes. Again,
Interesting.
it's so odd to me to hear other people find it unique because I see it every day. So a lot of times when I counsel clients who've come to see me for bankruptcy, we always want to make sure bankruptcy is the right option. And
Mm,
for some people, $12,000 is a make or break of whether they're going to put food on their table. For another person, $12,000 is just a bad shopping day.
Right.
So we really need to identify where the issue stemmed from. And certainly people can have medical episodes which create
Hmm.
medical bills. Is
Hmm.
it a one-time situation that's not likely to repeat again? Or is it something that is continuous that maybe bankruptcy isn't good to identify? And so in those cases, we look, can you increase income or decrease expenses? And when I find out that maybe there's a married couple and one of the spouses isn't working, then I say, is there anything preventing them from working? And if I hear a no, or there's some hesitation, I want to explore that further. And so I have clients who their spouse isn't working. It's not really their choice. It's not really their desire. And they maybe jokingly say something about divorce. And I say, well, I can handle that too. And that client then thinks about it and can then enter into maybe a divorce with less stress because they're not worried about how they're going to split up their debts because they've already taken care of that in the bankruptcy.
And honestly, I would assume that if somebody's speaking to a lawyer, um, you know, jokingly mentions divorce, it's really not jokingly that they mention. It's got to be something that's on their mind,
They want
has
it to
been on their
feel
mind.
like they're joking, even
Yeah.
though it is something they've thought about.
Hmm. Hmm. And so in the divorce situation, I'm not familiar with this. You'll know by my question. But do, do people declare bankruptcy before they get divorced, or do they go through the process, get assigned a certain amount of debt they can't pay, and then the bankruptcy comes, or does it just vary?
It varies for the types of clients I see. I think ideally, in a perfect world, what you would want is to have the bankruptcy completed before you file the divorce case, because
Mm.
then you've wiped out all the debt. And then all you have to really address in the divorce is maybe the children, maybe splitting up the assets, all the things that bring finality without the
Mhm.
stress of having to worry about the debts. Now, I've
Mhm.
had some cases where we do the bankruptcy in the middle of the divorce. As
Wow.
long as a final judgment hasn't been entered and you're still legally married, you're allowed to file the joint bankruptcy together. So that can
Ah,
save on attorney's fees, filing fees, all of that
yeah.
to, really keep costs low. Now, it does put the divorce case on pause for a little bit while the bankruptcy completes.
Mhm.
But if it's going to wipe out all the debts, certainly worth doing while the couple is still married.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, do you have cases where you go through the bankruptcy, and once that relief has been granted and the debts are wiped out, they say, maybe we can work out this marriage? Or
I
it
haven't
just,
seen that happen.
yeah, okay, okay, all right. I guess they're just too far down the road at that point to,
Exactly, because
yeah.
all I've covered then is the money problems. So
Right,
I
that's
haven't
true.
done
That's right.
anything to fix the life
Nothing else.
problems.
Nothing else. Yeah. Um, so how do you market this? Do you market them separately? Do you market them together? Tell me a little bit about how you handle the business side.
That's definitely a great point. So I'm involved in the Tampa Bay Bankruptcy Bar Association, and I sit on their
Mhm.
board of directors. And then I'm involved in the Kanakaris Family Law Inn of Court, and I sit on their board of directors. So I try not to market them both at the same time.
Mhm. I
To
wouldn't
the
think so,
Family Law
yeah.
Inn of Court, I'm a family law attorney who handles bankruptcy. In the Tampa Bay Bankruptcy Bar, I'm a bankruptcy attorney who handles
Handles,
family law cases.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
to each of those groups of people, when I'm standing in front of family law attorneys and I say I do bankruptcy, people shudder. And when I'm standing with bankruptcy attorneys and say I do family law, they shudder. So everybody dislikes the other side. So
Ah, I
being the
see.
person in the middle, I'm almost a translator because I can put family law terms into bankruptcy terms
Mhm.
into family law terms. It really helps each side feel more comfortable with what they're doing and how it's going to affect their cases.
it also makes you the go-to person for the referrals. Yeah. Because if I'm the family law lawyer and I see there might be a bankruptcy issue, who am I going to call?
Yeah.
I'll call you. Yeah. And vice versa.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. I love that. So I had asked you this before. What are your suggestions, the women in solo practice of any type out there that are, looking for suggestions about marketing, how to market, where to go, what to do? What would you suggest to a young woman that came to you and said, Kristina, how do I do this?
Yes.
Where should I be going?
I will share the piece of advice I received that I thought was just remarkable. Find what you love to do in terms of marketing and do that. So one of the things, I enjoy public speaking. The next person might not. And so because I love public speaking, because I feel that I do explain things well due to my years of teaching and whatnot, I think that's a strength of mine. So I seek out speaking opportunities, speaking for CLEs, talking to groups of people about what I do. I feel that that's my strength. What I don't want to do, or what I don't think anybody should do, is market in a manner you don't love. There are networking organizations that meet at 7:30 in the morning. I hate mornings. I don't morning. So for me, I don't care how wonderful that could be or what the return on my investment is going to be or how many clients I get out of it, because I know I'm going to hate every meeting of that. So my one piece of advice would be find what you love to do and do that as your marketing, whether it's writing, speaking, whatever.
That's great advice. And the other point, based on what you said, is like the 7:30 breakfast meetings. If you hate that, you're just not going to do it. Now you feel the guilt of, oh, I should be out there. I should be at that meeting, but it's 7:30 and I don't morning and I hate this. And, that's okay. You make a great point. It's okay if you hate it. Find the lunch group or the dinner group or the group that fits better with your schedule. Find that and do that because then you'll actually do it, as opposed to thinking about I should be doing it and I didn't. And there's nothing worse than that. So, Kristina, I think you have frozen up a little bit. So maybe if you can refresh, let me see if I can refresh you. I can't, but maybe you will come back. Let me, I'm going to have you come back in if you can. Let me try you back. Okay, let's see if I got you back. I didn't. I think you are. Okay. I'm sorry that you are frozen, but, oh, here we go. Okay. And hopefully you'll come back in. But I love that point, because you're right. If you hate to speak, if you hate public speaking, don't do public speaking. You'll be terrible at it because you hate it. Not because you can't do it, but because you hate it. There you go. You're back. And let me there we go. Now you're back.
Sorry for the hiccup.
No, that happens. It's technology. But do what you love. I love videos. I never thought I would, but I love doing them. And like you, I love public speaking. I was at my high school earlier today,
Awesome.
Talking about what it's like to be a woman lawyer. I went to an all girls high school, and that had nothing to do with, obviously marketing my business, but it was so much fun. I had the best time. And probably like you, I really feed off the audience. And it's great, but I know not everybody likes that. I hate to have to write things. I do it, but it's not top of the, if I give it a preference, speak or write, I'm speaking every time. So you need to find what works for you and then do it. And that's the key, right? And do it consistently.
Yes. And
Yes.
consistently is certainly difficult, especially when you're a younger woman lawyer,
Mhm.
because you have to get your foot in the door to show people that you're competent, that you're knowledgeable, that you can speak on those things. So, a lot of times I find that maybe mixed groups of professionals, not necessarily all
Mm.
lawyers, but if you can speak to, a group of women entrepreneurs, or
Yeah.
you could speak to a group of restaurant owners, some, or even with your legal aid society. They're always looking for people to go out, do presentations, help them with clinics that can help increase your visibility,
Yeah.
which then demonstrates competency.
Exactly. I've also noticed in your bio,
Mhm.
you sit on a number of boards.
Yes.
And so how do you find that helpful from a business point of view?
Sure. So I remember being a young lawyer and seeing all these people were on this board or that board, thinking, I wish somebody would ask me to be on a board. Now I would like it if a few people maybe didn't ask me, but it is good for my business because it's an intimate
Mhm.
opportunity to network without it necessarily being networky.
Right.
I sit in on a board meeting and we're talking about ideas, or, I have a suggestion for this event. People are getting to know me on a personal level.
Yeah.
And I find I want to refer cases to people that I trust. And I get that level of trust by speaking to them, knowing that they have kids or they're married or they like to bicycle on weekends, knowing something more about them other than they're just that person at that firm who does X. Because there are a lot of people out there at a firm who do X.
Right.
Why this person?
Great point, because, just like building a clientele, it's all about relationships, and
Yes.
that's all about trust. They have to
Yes.
know you, they have to like you, they have to trust you,
Yes.
because the work that you're doing for a client is important. The work that you do for a referral source, when people ask me for referrals, I'm very particular about what names I give out, because I'm not going to give out a name unless I have reason to believe that this is somebody who will do a good job, and I
Sure.
trust that they will. Yeah. 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 So, well, Kristina, this has been fascinating. Like I said, I was struck from the very moment we first spoke about she's doing bankruptcy and family law, and I haven't heard of that before. So I had to have you on. Now, who knows? This may spark a lot of other women lawyers out there to say, you know what, I can do that. I did
Yes.
some of the family law, some of the bankruptcy. That might really work for me. So if somebody needs to or would like to get in touch with you, you had given me your email address.
Yes.
So it's okay that they give you an email, send you an
Please.
email and ask
Yes.
questions, or
Absolutely. Yes.
okay. Okay. Terrific. Terrific. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
And
for having me.
listeners, if you need to get in touch with Kristina, you have her email, send her an email. She is delightful, and I know she'll be happy to respond and answer your questions.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much,
Chris,
Sharon.
thank you.